right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back for yet another episode here of Night Brothers Commentary, bringing you, again, a wide range of topics, a lot of different mixes between sports and politics, pop culture, cinema, and today we are going to jump back into one of my favorite topics, which is Marvel and the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know it's something that Matt follows very closely, as do I. We're starting to get some more content from them. So we are going to be doing a little pseudo review discussion around Spider-Man Far From Home. And Matt, I'm going to kick it over to you to sort of get us rolling.
All right, so today we're basically just going to review the second Spider-Man movie in the MCU, just because that basis, just as far as I know, the third movie is scheduled to come out in December of this year, and I feel like I guess now is really as good a time as any just to kind of give us a refresher of what happened in the second and what maybe we could expect from the third.
Yeah, what can we look forward to? And, it's an exciting year, hopefully, as long as things don't get pushed back here in 2021. We're going to get a lot of content from Marvel. So this is one that I'm definitely excited about. I think, Spider-Man has proven, both from a character standpoint and in the larger sense, that it is one of the most popular parts of the MCU. And so it's time to get the ball rolling. Let's start creating some excitement for what we're going to see in December.
Yeah. So essentially, the movie kind of starts out back in New York. They basically talk about the 5-year period where Avengers Endgame kind of begins, and then where it ends is the blip.
Yep.
So that's basically what they call the snap, essentially. But essentially, he's kind of back in high school doing his thing.
When we say we're talking about Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Spider-Man.
And they're kind of looking forward to going on this European trip for the summer.
Yep.
And Peter basically has this massive crush on MJ, which, I don't know. To me, it just kind of feels a little shoehorned in, if you ask me. Yes, he does have a crush on MJ in the comics, especially after the whole thing with Gwen Stacy and her death in the comics. So,
yeah.
Spoiler alert if you haven't really read those, but essentially, I don't know. I guess that whole subplot just did not really feel natural to me. It didn't really feel like
it wasn't organic.
Yeah, it wasn't really organic. It just felt like
they felt obligated to touch on it. And,
yeah,
and I can tell you, Matt, why because I feel the same way. And I think some of that is because in previous iterations, whether it be the Tobey Maguire or the Andrew Garfield version of Spider-Man, right? We hadn't seen those characters in other movies before, right? The Tom Holland Spider-Man, we've seen in several Marvel movies. We've kind of gotten to know the character. We understand what he's been through by the time we're seeing him in Far From Home. And I just feel like it didn't ring true to how I had perceived the character in the time that I had seen him on screen, right?
Yeah.
It did not seem like he was somebody that was going to, have this little love story thing that sort of underpins much of this Far From Home movie. Although I did like Zendaya as MJ. I thought she was really
she was great.
Yeah.
The way she portrayed the character was great. I loved her performance, but I just feel like Peter's crush on her just didn't really feel organic to the story. It didn't really feel like it was fleshed out very well in the first Spider-Man movie, because it was basically for Peter at least, it was basically him crushing on the daughter of a Vulture.
Yep.
So, and then you saw no hints, not even the slightest hint of any attraction for him and MJ. So you never saw that in the first Spider-Man movie. So it's like, okay, where is this coming from?
Yeah. And maybe they didn't do that because the audience kind of knew where the story was going to go. Everybody knows the Peter Parker MJ dynamic, who's familiar with the comics and who has watched previous, like I said, previous
iterations of Spider-Man movies. So
correct.
Yeah. So maybe you're probably right on that, but
yeah.
Either way, moving on. Essentially, they go to Europe. They basically go to, I think the first spot is Venice. And then that's where the water elemental attacks.
Yep.
Spider-Man doesn't have a suit, so he's basically just kind of, I guess,
freewheeling it.
Yeah, just freewheeling it, really.
Yeah.
And then as soon as the battle really looks bleak, Mysterio shows up, pretending to be the hero.
Yeah, and I'll tell you what, I thought Jake Gyllenhaal did a really good job playing Mysterio.
And that's true. He really did.
Because I didn't know the backstory. I'm not familiar with Mysterio in the comics, and I tried to avoid any and all spoilers prior to seeing this film. So
I mean, the way I kind of knew the twist coming up.
Yeah.
Because I have read some of the comics myself, and I kind of knew that Mysterio was a villain from the comics, so I kind of knew that they were probably going to try to set him up as a hero first and then reveal him to be the real villain of the whole thing.
Yeah. And I knew that too. I mean, I knew that just from the lead up and the trailers and things.
I mean,
I knew that Mysterio was the villain, right?
Yeah.
But even still, I thought Gyllenhaal did a great job kind of selling that, just selling that I am the hero performance, if you will. It was believable.
Yeah, I mean, it really was believable. I mean, if you didn't know that he was a villain in the comics, you would have thought he was a pretty nice dude.
Yeah, that's correct.
But here's the thing, though. The twist I was not expecting was the whole thing regarding Barf.
Oh, yeah.
That was so, I thought that was going to be an Avengers Endgame.
Really?
Yeah, because for Endgame, I thought they were going to use Barf as an artificial simulation just to try to see where everything is.
Yeah.
Like going back for their memories.
Yep.
Seeing where the Infinity Stones are, trying to figure out trying to figure out where they are, where they can go, and what they can do to actually figure out how to.
And just for the audience, Matt, explain Barf. This is one of Tony Stark's kind of
inventions, if you will.
Yeah, explain that just so the audience kind of understands what we're talking about from this standpoint of alternate reality, if you will.
Now, here's the thing. Barf wasn't really, it's not necessarily, I mean, if you remember one of the first scenes in a Captain America Civil War where Tony Stark is basically at MIT giving a presentation.
Yeah.
Essentially, that whole scene is basically him projecting his memories in real time.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's like bi-articulated retroframing or something like that. It was something like that. And essentially, the thing about that is that's kind of Mysterio's whole game.
Yeah.
I mean, he uses, because in the comics, he basically uses illusions, like magical illusions. But here in the MCU, he's using technology to
create
create magical illusions.
He is a true, and really it's...
Because here's the thing, he helped Tony Stark invent it.
Right.
Because you see, in the background,
correct.
Because that's how he's revealed to be the villain. Because they show the Barf presentation from Civil War, and it's wow.
Yeah.
It's you kind of knew they were setting up something big, but it was holy crap. That was not the twist I was expecting.
No, it wasn't. And what I found interesting, too, was, I've watched movies and I've been to magic shows, and you understand that whether you're talking about a magician or someone who does illusions or whatever it is, they do rely on technology in a sense that they are developing and creating these gimmicks that allow them to pull off the illusions, right? And I think Marvel just took that to
a whole nother level.
A whole nother level in terms of actually using technology in the way that you and I think about technology, gadgets, electronics, things like that, and really incorporating that into these large scale illusions that
actually seem and look real.
Correct.
Like they're actually real.
I thought that concept was really cool. I don't know if we'll see that reappear down the road.
I think we will.
Yeah.
And the reason why I think we do is because I think Sony is going to try to use the ending of Far From Home in a way. I think what they're going to try to do is set up the Sinister Six.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is because the way the first Spider-Man movie ended, Homecoming, you had Matt Gargan, who's known as both Venom and Scorpion, but mostly Scorpion in the comics.
Yeah.
Meeting Vulture at the prison.
Yep.
And not only that, but Mysterio has also been known to be a member of the Sinister Six.
Okay.
But the way I see it, he's definitely going to be one of those members. And I am personally of the opinion that Morbius and Venom might also be the other two members because we've already had a Venom movie and we're going to have Morbius, I think, in 2022.
Yeah.
And then we're going to have Venom later this year in late June. So kind of looking forward to that movie. But anyway, kind of moving on.
Yeah.
Essentially, Fury kind of shows up.
Sort of.
Yeah. And we'll get to that later. But the way I see it, basically, Fury has kind of been working with Beck under the illusion that Beck is actually from another alternate universe.
Yeah.
Which was kind of set up in Doctor Strange, and we're definitely going to get into that movie, and probably even with WandaVision too, because from everything that we've heard, basically, I mean, the MCU is definitely doing they're kind of doing what the Arrowverse did. We're basically having like one massive central universe,
right?
That's broken up into smaller mini multiverses.
And Matt, when you say Beck, I want to clarify for everybody. We're talking about Mysterio.
Yes.
That is his name essentially. That is the Peter Parker to Spider-Man.
Yes.
Essentially.
Yeah.
So, so Fury and Beck are sort of
working together at the moment, with Fury thinking he's a good guy, even though we know he's not.
Yep.
Essentially, after Peter Parker kind of gets that new kind of black Spider-Man suit, that's
funky one.
Yeah.
It's a little funky suit. I wasn't
a big fan of it, but it wasn't really poorly designed either. It was basically just kind of like a way for Spider-Man to kind of really use his powers while not really being Spider-Man.
Yeah, well, and not necessarily, and at least being able to conceal who he is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it did its job.
Right.
And so basically, he and Mysterio are fighting the fire elemental, and then eventually both MJ and Peter kind of come to the realization that something isn't right.
Yeah.
Like with this fight.
Yeah.
And then, but before that, Peter ends up giving the Edith glasses, the really like the super cool, like super powerful glasses
from Tony Stark.
Yeah, from Tony Stark, that basically control a massive weapon in space.
Yep.
Which really ends up proving to be a dumb move, because that was the end game for Beck, Mysterio.
Yeah.
And the group he's working with, who are all ex-Stark employees who are fired, I guess.
They kind of have a revenge mindset.
Yeah,
or they're
exactly.
holding a grudge or whatever.
Yeah, they all hold a grudge against Tony Stark, so they basically want to take all his stuff and use it against him, try to paint him in a bad light.
Yeah.
Or at least, just kind of like your stereotypical bad guy plot. But
yeah.
But eventually, MJ kind of figures out who Spider-Man is.
Yeah.
And then he reveals it to her.
Yep.
And then they figure out like, oh crap. And
shouldn't
then,
have given the glasses away.
Yeah. and then he tries to meet Fury, who actually was just an illusion by Beck.
Correct. So it was, and that was these were the little tricks and sort of twists and turns in the plot that, while yes, I knew Mysterio was going to be the ultimate bad guy for the film, I still was on the edge of my seat because it was so hard to know through some of this illusion technology what was real, what was not, where were they actually going, what was actually happening in reality versus what was illusion.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what sort of drove, the suspense to and through, the second half of the film, really. Yeah.
So I guess one of the big things that really kind of happens is eventually, after Spider-Man gets his butt handed to him by Beck, and I want to say the Netherlands. I want to say it was the Netherlands, or
I can't remember, Matt, off the top of my head. I'm not sure.
Happy picks him up in a plane.
Yeah.
And basically, this plane basically has this awesome machine that allows Spider-Man to build his new suit.
It was definitely paying homage to Tony Stark.
Oh yeah, it was definitely paying.
It was almost a callback. Tony and Peter obviously have a very unique relationship in terms of how Spider-Man and Peter Parker got brought into the Avengers, essentially.
Yeah.
Because
they really just replaced Uncle Ben with Tony Stark. That's kind of what they did.
Yeah, I would agree with that in terms of this.
Him being like the main father figure / mentor that he really has in the story.
That is absolutely correct. So it was a very cool scene to see him with Happy on the jet, and really what we're talking about is he goes into this portion of the plane that's almost like a mini version of one of Tony Stark's laboratories, right?
Yeah.
And starts building this new suit, essentially. And I thought it was really cool. It was, and I give Tom Holland a lot of credit because Iron Man is such a staple character, probably the most well-known character in the MCU. And I think Holland does a really good job of creating his own persona as Spider-Man, but also he does a good job of, I guess, threading in some Tony Stark. Like he gives off a Tony Stark kind of aura or vibe in some of this, and I think that's really cool. And I think probably maybe it goes underappreciated for the more casual fan, but I really like it.
Yeah, and that's fair. So eventually they end up going to London. They end up having this big battle, And I guess one of the funnier subplots is basically Spider-Man's Spidey sense, or as his aunt puts it,
Yeah.
the Peter Tingle.
The Peter Tingle. And I loved Happy saying when he keeps saying the Peter Tingle, it is, for those of you who haven't watched the movie, wait till you get to that part because it is it's pretty funny.
I mean, it is
Favreau delivers it just spot on.
I mean, it's true. I mean,
but there is a point to it in the sense that,
I mean, it's basically how he basically uses the Spidey sense to actually beat Mysterio, like right at the end.
Right. But he was struggling to utilize it because of all the different illusions that were going on, right? So it was sort of what Peter used as one of his greatest strengths was almost minimized a little bit by some of the technology and things that Mysterio was using until your point at the very end. So it did have a purpose beyond just delivering a funny line.
I mean, it really did have a purpose because, I mean, that is one of Spider-Man's most classic powers, being able to sense things before they happen.
Correct. And it allows him to, again, typically overcome whoever it is that he's, pitted against.
Yeah.
So,
Now, so essentially, there are really two end credit scenes that I think have massive, and I mean massive importance.
Well, hold on. Before we get to the end credits, at least give the audience how does the movie
basically
conclude from a Mysterio standpoint. We want to resolve that.
Essentially, Mysterio dies,
right?
Or I mean, I'm pretty sure he's dead, but
we think it leads you to believe that he's dead.
So it's possible that he isn't, albeit very slim.
Yeah.
But from what I'm thinking, essentially, Peter and MJ get into a relationship, and all of Beck's compatriots basically take all the stuff that they stole from Stark and just kind of pack up shop and leave.
Yeah.
But they have all the information that they really need.
Yep.
And then one of the end credit scenes, and
that's the information that they need is where this end credit scene comes into play.
For some of it, yeah.
Yeah.
Two things. Yeah, the first one is the one with J. Jonah Jameson.
Right.
And basically where they had this leak clip of Beck saying, hey, Spider-Man's the real villain, and I know who he is. It's Peter Parker. And
right.
Spider-Man just flips out like, oh.
This is basically playing across, I can't remember exactly where they were, but something along the lines of like a Times Square, television, big screen. So it's playing across the news, and you've got J. Jonah Jameson basically saying, it's Peter Parker, that's Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And Peter's watching this going, oh shit.
Yeah. So yeah, basically. So.
And J. Jonah Jameson is awesome and was being played by the original actor from the Tobey Maguire version.
I mean, I love that they brought him back.
If you had brought anybody else back, I think it would have been hard to do it justice. He was so good.
I know he was so good.
So it was that was one of my favorite parts of the whole movie, quite frankly.
And then the second end credit scene, which I think is probably going to be more important to the MCU, is the reveal that Maria Hill and Fury in this movie were actually the Skrulls from Captain Marvel.
Right. And that was why I said earlier, when we were talking about Fury showing up with Beck and that whole thing, it was the entire time you think you're dealing with Fury, and now you're like, okay, wait a minute. And again, and this is what I love about Marvel and this universe that we touched on earlier that kind of has all these different facets and pockets and corners. All these things are so connected. It just makes it a lot of fun because now we know that they're setting up Skrull and like Secret Invasion at some point, or at least that's what we think they're putting down. Right.
Because we see Nick Fury on either a Skrull ship or a ship from Sword.
Yeah. One of the two. Yeah. And you could still go that direction either way, really.
Yeah, because now, I guess, I don't want to get too spoilery with WandaVision, but one of those characters is actually an agent from Sword.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay. I did not know that.
And that was basically it. So essentially, I mean, this movie has really kind of set the stage for Phase 4.
Yeah.
Even though it's technically the end of Phase 3, it really kind of helps set the stage for Phase 4. And to be honest, I'm really looking forward to what Disney throws at us.
Yeah, it's listen, they've got a lot of content coming this year. I think we're going to get
because we got Falcon
and Winter Soldier,
and we also got Loki and Moon Knight. I think is probably coming next year. I want to say it's either late this year or next year.
Yep.
But
we got what else?
So we got Eternals and Black Widow and Shang-Chi. I think got moved up.
Shang-Chi. When are we Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness? Is that 22?
Yeah, that's 22 now.
Okay.
It got pushed back.
All right. Well, listen, we've got a lot coming.
Yeah, we got a lot coming.
And I do think, we'll tease this WandaVision episode, review that we're going to do here in a little bit. I'll tease you one more time. I think they're going to, based on how the third episode ended, I think we're going to start to see some things. I think they're really going to use that to set up some of this multiverse, connectivity, if you will. And so it's been weird so far. We'll see what happens. We've got Spider-Man 3. Do we have a title on that yet?
I don't think we do.
Okay. Well, that's supposed to be, as Matt said at the beginning of the show, December 2021, so less than a year away. I'm just excited, quite frankly, after kind of a slow 2020.
Yeah, it was slow.
You come off that high of Endgame, right? And then Far From Home, and then,
not much has really happened.
Not a lot's happened, but we've got a lot coming. So, that's Matt. Anything else before we wrap?
Nope, I think we're good.
Awesome, guys. Well, please, if you got any comments or thoughts, leave them in the comment section below. And until next time, Night Brothers Commentary, we're signing out.